They shut down my elevator, so I trapped their entire building. It began on a Monday morning when I stepped into the lobby and saw the notice. The elevator was out of service, it said, until further inspection. At first I thought it was a maintenance issue, but then I heard the whispers. Residents were grumbling about sudden inspections and new fines. I live on the 12th floor. My elderly mother lives with me. Carrying groceries up 12 flights is not a small thing. I called the management office right away. They told me the elevator had been condemned for safety violations. They gave no timeline and no clear paperwork. When I asked for documentation, the manager sent only a vague email. When I asked where the notice had come from, he pointed to the HOA board. They had ordered the shutdown. They said the elevator needed immediate corrections. They insisted it was an emergency. For 2 days, we hauled bags of food and heavy boxes up dozens of steps. My mother's legs ached. Neighbors helped where they could. We all grew tired and angry. Parents missed work trying to care for children. A resident with a broken ankle had to sleep in the lobby. I knocked on the HOA president's door and asked for answers. He told me to be patient and follow the rules. He refused to show the inspection report. His tone was condescending. He smiled as if the inconvenience was deserved. That was the moment I decided I would not be pushed around. I began to research. I found the original building plans at the city office. I read maintenance contracts and utility easements. I read about the shaft that ran through a narrow service corridor. What I discovered surprised me. The main control panel that routed the building's elevator power was inside a locked electrical room that belonged to my property deed. The electrical room had been left accessible through a service easement that still legally tied it to my unit. The HOA had been performing maintenance for years without formal permission. That gave me leverage. It created a legal fact they had ignored. I called my attorney and explained the situation. We drafted a formal notice revoking any implicit permission for work in that room until a binding agreement was signed. We sent the notice to the HOA and the building's maintenance contractor. The next morning, company crews arrived to inspect the shaft. They were polite but cautious. The contractor told the board they could not restart the elevator without clear written consent from me. The HOA president panicked. He called emergency meetings and demanded action. Over the next day, units that relied on elevator access began to feel the real consequences. Delivery workers piled packages in the lobby. Visitors stopped coming to parties on higher floors. A neighbor in the penthouse missed a crucial work interview because the commute took 2 hours with the stairs. The board members who had ordered the shutdown now heard the complaints they had ignored. I kept my voice calm, but I held my ground. I told the HOA I would not permit any work in the room until they covered the costs the shutdown had caused my family and other vulnerable residents. I asked for reimbursement for medical trips and for the extra help we had hired. I requested a written agreement that any future work would require my explicit consent and fair compensation. The board tried to bully me. They threatened fines and legal action. They posted comments on the building's message board calling me difficult and obstructive. But the contractor would not risk liability without the paperwork. The elevator remained silent. I watched as their confidence eroded. Neighbors who had once applauded the board's hard line now queued outside my door asking for help. They explained how the elderly on the 8th and 10th floors had been forced into dangerous stair climbs. They told me about the deliveries that had spoiled and the missed appointments. One evening, the HOA president came to my unit in person. He looked exhausted and desperate. He apologized for the trouble and asked me what I would accept to let the crews work. I explained my terms clearly. I wanted every fine voided and every expense I and affected residents had to bear paid. I wanted a binding agreement ensuring no more unilateral shutdowns. He signed on the spot. He had no choice. He knew the city would hold the HOA responsible if they pushed the contractor into work without consent. Within hours, crews were in the electrical room preparing the control panel for service. By midnight, the elevator hummed back to life. Neighbors cheered and some clapped outside in the lobby. My mother rode up to our 12th floor apartment and smiled with relief. Packages that had been piled in the lobby were finally delivered. Life returned to something close to normal, but nothing was the same for the board. They paid the invoices they had to pay. They rescinded the fines. They agreed to my conditions in formal writing. Later, at the next annual meeting, the president apologized publicly. He said he had acted hastily. People nodded, but their faces were tired. They had learned that enforcement without fairness can quickly backfire. My family recovered. My mother's joints healed. Neighbors told us thank you in the hallways. Some of them now greeted me with a nod of respect. I never wanted to make anyone's life miserable. I wanted my home to remain a safe place for my family. I also wanted the HOA to understand that authority does not give one the right to harm others. So tell me, if the HOA shut down your elevator tomorrow, would you have forced them to fix the real problem before you let anyone back in?